Yeah, so big news is that we will be going directly from the web portion into labs. So you're going to be working on your labs project before computer science. Huge moment, and really an awesome thing that we're able to do. But that's not coming for another 12 weeks for you guys. So a lot of time to go from here to there. Cool. So let's come into these questions. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. And let's go into these questions I posted. If you have any questions regarding higher order components, then please post it in there and I'll try to answer them. So let's see. I'm going to view all responses right now because Polly is weird. So refactoring code to use a higher order component was confusing. Granted, that is confusing. And will be every time you refactor code. It's a difficult thing to do, and it's something that really comes with practice. Will higher order components be used frequently? I think that there's probably there's two parts to this question. Will they be used frequently? Yes. You will use higher order components frequently in your day-to-day life as a React developer. Will you be creating your own higher order components? No, not frequently, I should say. Not no, but not frequently. So you will use libraries that utilize higher order components. And in fact, we're going to use one tonight. But for the most part, you're not really going to be building your own that often. So I think that there are probably two ideas to that question. Is there a time I will need to use this, and how do I tell? Kind of piggybacking off the last question, I think that the vast majority of the time is you're going to be using them with a third-party library. Styled Components Tonight uses them. Redux uses them. So a lot of stuff that we use frequently does use them. So that's how you're going to be able to tell. You building your own higher order component is probably going to be a decision that will fall on a more senior developer until you get a better grasp of the architecture of a modern React application. And it's one of those things that some companies don't use them at all. And so, like I said, higher order components are not an official piece of React. They're more of a design pattern created by React developers. And so some companies are like, we don't have any use for them. We don't see a reason to use them. We don't use them. You're going to see things called render props come up soon. Same thing. It's another advanced design pattern that can either be used or not used. So it's probably going to fall onto a more senior level developer at first until you really get the feel for whether you should use them or not. Let's see, passing methods down to children. I don't really, and I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the chat right now. I'm looking at a different chat window. I don't really know how much more to say on this other than passing methods down to children as props. I don't really, maybe not getting the full gist of it, but I'm going to move on. Let's see, about the specific project, my search function works once, but when I search the second time, the others disappear and I have to refresh the page. That could possibly be something to do with the way you are updating your state, I think is a pretty common problem when you see something like that, or the way you're passing your props. Wondering how to set up and utilize local storage properly. That's more of an advanced topic that we will touch on in this course, but we're not going to go into full detail right now. If you look up MDN local storage, you're going to see a pretty good overview of how to use it, and it's pretty simple. But we really don't get into it in depth until we start talking about authentication in our backend project. If you did implement local storage in your project last night or this latest project, that is a stretch goal, and so it's on you. Same one, local storage, storing comments or users. That's going to be a stretch goal. So go MDN local storage. You're going to see a lot of good stuff about it, and it's not super difficult. I feel good about higher order components, but my anxiety has me questioning whether I feel like I know enough to feel comfortable. I think that is a feeling that is probably felt cohort-wide, and is probably felt, I want to say, professional developer sphere-wide. That's probably a feeling that you're never going to be able to shake. And it really comes down to the imposter syndrome. So I would say if you're having serious anxiety about higher order components right now, just don't, because this is merely something that we want to introduce you to. These advanced design patterns. There are many more in React, but we're not going super hardcore into this. We want to introduce you to these ideas about ways to use React in more than just regular out-of-the-box ways. And the gist of it is that this is not going to be on your sprint challenge on Saturday, so you're not going to have to worry about implementing your own higher order components on your sprint challenge, and that it's really just meant to open your mind to other ways of using React. Local storage should not be an MVP. I'll look into it later, but I can show you tonight too. It's fairly simple. Hold on a second. I'm actually going to look into it right now. There we go. Of course, it says day 3 still. Stretch problems. So, wait, what? Okay. We can go over local storage tonight. That is not supposed to be an MVP, so we'll go over it tonight. Sorry about that. If it was, that has changed on me with no notice, but it was always MVP in the past. But it's fairly simple, local storages. And actually, let's kick it off right now by talking about it. So let me go share my screen. So first things first, let's MDN local storage. Local storage is a global method available to you in the browser. Okay, so anytime you see window.local storage, we know that window is our global object, right? It's our global object encompassing everything that we, and actually I'm going to move this over so I can see your comments as I go. So anytime we see window, we know that window is our overall object that's encompassing everything in our browser, right? And so this is a browser. Local storage is a browser method. And so if we go window, let's see, come down. This is everything that encompasses our all of our JavaScript in our browser, and we can come down here and see the local storage. So local storage, there should be some functions on it, but local storage is used to set data to be saved in our browser. Okay, so just looking into it right now, we can come into our application, and we can see that local storage is essentially this place where we can save data in the user's browser, and it cannot be accessed by any other website. It can only be accessed by the website that it was saved at. So if we come into here and we see that Mozilla has saved some local storage for us, let's move this over, and they have given it the key contributions pop over disabled, right? Okay, so they have saved this data in here for us in our local storage. I want to keep it here. So if you want to see something crazy, and if you go to any website like this, let's go to Google. Let's open that. Let's go to application, local storage, and look how much local storage Google saves. Okay, but notice also, as a little wake up, I'm sure you all know that websites save a ton of data, cookies, etc. Notice though that the local storage that I see here from Google is not accessible on developer.mozilla.org. Okay. So local storage is only available to the site that saved it there. Let's come into our console again. I'm actually going to go here because it's much easier to see. So there are essentially 3 methods on local storage that we want to worry about. You can worry about clear if you want, but we are going to do set item, remove item, and get item. Those are the 3 big ones. Clear is going to clear the whole local storage, but let's go to set item first. So set item is a method. Carla, is local storage what is used by search engines to send me some ads of products I've searched before? No. Google maybe, as far as what you've searched for, but they're using cookies for the other, and cookies are different than local storage. So you can see that we have cookies down here as well, and that can be tracked across websites. Local storage cannot. So when you disable cookies, this is what you're disabling. Local storage, you can disable local storage as well, but it's probably going to make a lot of websites break because we, as developers, need to save data to your browser if we want to persist things like users and if you're logged in or not. Are we going to be developing cookies? No, but we will be using cookies in the form of a session and note jots are in local storage. So we'll get into sessions, but that's all back-end stuff. We're not going to be developing our own cookies, so no. Much more advanced than we get into. So back to local storage. So what we do is set item, get item. Well, set item takes 2 arguments to it. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word argument. So it's going to take the name of the argument we want to set, and it's going to take the data that we want to set. Essentially, we can think of local storage as a big object where we give it a key value pair. So let's just say I'm going to set name to Dan. Oh. All right. Well, nothing happened. We can look in here and it probably, yep, there it is. Now we can see in our local storage that we have the key of name and the value of Dan in there. So what happens if we want to, let's say, let object equal, and we'll just give it some arbitrary stuff in here. 1, B, 2, C, 3. we want to save this object to our local storage. Well, the local storage has a limitation to it. And that limitation is that the value, the key and the value that you set on local storage has to be strings, okay? I cannot save this basic JavaScript object to local storage. Set item. It might do something. Let's go. Okay, so you see there, when I went to set an object to our local storage, what happens is JavaScript's going to stringify this for us. And a stringified object, a coerced object into a string, is this. You're going to see this quite a bit in your development career. Object. And you're going to be like, what does that even mean? That means that JavaScript has coerced this beautiful JavaScript object into a string, and this is the result. So does anybody know how we can turn an object into a JavaScript string? Arpita, Philip, and Edward, and probably more have gotten it correct. We're going to use JSON stringify. So and let's go, what's the name of that new object? We're going to go JSON.stringify, and we'll pass in our object. Okay. You'll also notice that I didn't remove the old one. I just reset what this object is, right? What new object is set to, just like a JavaScript object. So now we can go see that our new object is set to what looks like an object to us, okay? So we have turned that object into a JSON string, and we are able to save that JSON string to our local storage, all right? You saw right now the second one, pretty simple. Is get item. And get item takes one argument, and that is the name of the key we want. So I can say new object, and look at that. What we get back is a JSON string. This is not an object. If I say let new object equal local storage dot get item, new object is going to be a string. So I can't say, nope. It's going to say undefined. It doesn't know what I'm talking about. So how do I return this to its beautiful JavaScript object self? Yep, we use json.parse. So we're going to say new object dot equals JSON dot parse, and we'll give it the thing we had saved before, and now we can say, and then we get it. Okay, so that is how we save things to local storage, objects, arrays, strings, numbers, whatever we want. That's how we save it to local storage. That's how we get things back from local storage. And then, as you might imagine, remove item works pretty simply as well. And we can go look, and it's gone. Okay. You could use that to set a JSON file to state. Absolutely. You can use, there's a lot of persisting state that happens within local storage in the professional React development world. What's the purpose of local storage? So, Arpita, think about this. When you sign in to anything, 2019 now, when you sign into Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Google or anything, and you close your browser, you shut down your computer, you start it back up again a day later, you go to Facebook, you're already signed in, right? And you're like, well, how does it know I had already signed in? What they do, and what you'll learn about as well, is that we will save a key or a token in your local storage that tells the server, hey, this user's already signed in, and they'll automatically sign you in. Okay, so that's one big use of local storage. Persisting data across sessions. So if you have some data that is being used by an application and you sign out and sign back in, you still have that data in there. You thought cookies did that? They do. So there's two different ways of doing it. You're going to learn both of the ways. I just wanted to just show you a real world example. So cookies do that as well with sessions and with things like JOTs and different tokens and keys. We use local storage for that. So there's a lot of uses for it. Right now, we're going to use it as this persistence because we do not have a backend and we do not have a database right now. So that's why we use local storage for right now. But it can be used for a lot of things. Like, look at this, disabled. I, at some point, came on to MDN and I clicked on don't show me this box again. And they have saved this, my preference in my local storage. So I bet if I cleared my local storage, clear, and then I come in here and see that it is cleared, and I bet if I refresh this page, I'll see some sort of pop-up or pop over. There it is right there. This help MDN grow. So let's go look at this. So this is a preference that I had clicked on in the past. Watch this. As soon as I click this, I bet we'll get a local storage item pop in. There we go. So that's how we, it's not ever to save sensitive information. Never, ever, ever save sensitive information in local storage because it's easily accessible, right? But things like preferences, themes, like you're like, oh, I like the dark theme. Save that in local storage. This user likes the dark theme, right? Things like that are really good for local storage. So pretty simple to use, but pretty powerful when we start developing robust applications. Cool. Any other questions? Sake of this project, it's okay, but don't store credit cards and passwords and social security numbers and things that you just don't want to get out. Yeah, I just don't don't save sensitive information in local storage, period. Yeah, Arpedia, you'll learn about it, but we actually encrypt a token. And so if someone were to get that token, they could not decrypt it. And they also expire. But you'll learn about it in the back end. Cool. Any other questions on local storage right now? All right. That was not planned for tonight, but I'm glad we got with it and learned about it. It's pretty cool stuff. And I'm going to make sure that we know that that's on our MVP for next time. Sorry about that. Cool. So tonight's lesson plan, what we're going to talk about is higher order components. We're going to create components that create higher order components. No, I'm just kidding. It's going to be much simpler than that. Tonight we're going to talk about CSS again, which I don't know. Maybe you think it's much simpler, or maybe not. but we're gonna talk about CSS tonight and how we use CSS in React applications. Okay, so let's start from the beginning of how we use CSS. Who can tell me a couple of ways that we can include CSS in any project? Start naming ways that we include CSS. Linking to an external style sheet. Inline styles, absolutely. What other ways? Import a CSS file. And this is not just React, this is everything. JSX inline, yep. Class name, which in regular DOM lingo is just class, right? Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about external CSS files. So I've written CSS file, so just a regular old CSS file that we bring in via the style tag or the link tag, I should say. The style tag would be I guess it would be inline within our HTML, but still CSS. So technically not inline styles. We do have inline styles, so we can put CSS styles directly on our DOM element. We can also use less files. We can also bring in third-party libraries. So that being said, how do we include CSS in a React file? Oh no. It's ahead of us right there. Here's a quick CSS in our regular file. Import, so we can create a CSS file, right? So if I'm going to come in here, open a new code sandbox. What is it? Code sandbox dot something IO. Okay. What? There we go. Let's close that. Create a sandbox. React. I want to do something really simple, and we'll just go class name, and we'll say hello. We're gonna give this a class of hello, right? In our CSS file here, it's already done it for us. We can just say .hello and give it a color of Dodger blue. And look at that, right? So we are using the import statement to import an external CSS file. This is an absolutely valid way of importing and using CSS in React. So before we go any farther, CSS with React is one of these topics that you're probably not going to find two developers agree on. Okay, of the correct and proper way to do this. There are, and we'll see 5 different ways tonight to do this, and they're changing. But you know, if I had a less file in here, and had my less compiler compile that to a CSS file, I can absolutely import that, right? That CSS file. And so I can use less or Sass or any other preprocessor. I can write regular old CSS and bring it in. Totally fine. What's another way I can write CSS in React? It's up to you. Right? Your suggestions here. What's another way I can do it in React? Import a library. Style types. I'm trying to think, Brett. I'm not familiar with style types. Frameworks like Bootstrap, which we will be talking about tonight. It might be. Okay, cool. So that would fall under library. And I'll be the first to tell you, there are probably 3 dozen different CSS libraries for React out there, and I probably know 3 of them because those are the ones I use, right? And those are the ones that I have used professionally. So there's always new new libraries coming around. I would say the most commonly used CSS UI library is Bootstrap. As far as that goes, we'll get into that in just a moment. But I'm talking about like how else can I style? Let's say I want to style this H2. How else could I style this specific H2 without using a library? Yeah, inline, right? So this is probably one of the more common ways you're going to see React styled. So I can just say something like const styles. You'll see this kind of thing is really prevalent. Let's just call this H2, and we're going to give it color of green. Actually, give me a CSS color. I want to you color my page for me. First one gets it. Peach. Boom. All right. So we have this styles object where we can create all of our styles, and then we can use the style prop. Okay. And then we'll go styles dot H2. Oh, that's right. That is no bueno. Oh, and that is as well. So you gotta. That didn't work. Might not be a thing. All right, next color. Black. No. Yeah, we're really gonna see the impact that setting the color to black is. Lavender. There we go. So let's see. I saw a comment in here. Andrew, you said just style, and style is the prop, but we can call this whatever we want. Dan's wacky styles, if I wanted to, right? This is just an object that we're referencing, not anything in React, right? So just to do a little bit more, let's go orange. Okay. All right, so this is inline styles in React. This is how you're going to see a lot of styling done in React. And if you ever work in React Native, this is how you'll see a lot of styling done as well. Okay, and also we can just write that style right in here, right? Color. Let's see what another one on there. Peach puff, is that okay? We'll see if it's real. There it is. Peach puff is real. All right, so we can just put an object with our styles directly in there. Okay, this is considered inline styles in React. Some things you have to consider while doing this, right? Let's see. Melvin, if you put it in the style prop, then yes, it recognizes CSS as an object, as a JavaScript object, right? This is not CSS. We are not writing CSS in here. This is an object, okay? So let me do something different. I'm going to change the name of this to Dan's Wacky Styles to Peach Color. That's just what I'm going to call it. All right, I don't want to confuse anyone and think that this is actually CSS, okay? Dan's Wacky Styles dot Peach Color. There we go. This is not styled components, no. Yeah, so Arpita, look at what we're doing. When we do style, we have that curly bracket to denote that we're going to include some JavaScript in there. And then we're passing in this, essentially, this whole object. So yeah, you do need to, if you're writing directly in line. Okay. So what's a disadvantage of writing style like this, of writing your styles like this? I love those two top ones. third, I love them all, right? Number one, it's super repetitive. What if I have a button that I'm creating and I want to use that button in dozens of different components, right? I'm going to have to rewrite this over and over again every time I want to use it. So it's not dry at all. Super high specificity, totally, right? So I have to rewrite the CSS every single time I want to use it. And not only is it super high, but think about why this is the highest specificity it can be, right? Not even just for the reason that we have it on here, because when React creates this and sends it out into the wild, it actually puts an HTML inline style on that DOM element, okay? So this is the highest specificity that you could have, right? It's not even creating an ID. This is much higher specificity than an ID, right? It puts it directly on your element here. Let's see. I want to say, Brett said maintainability. Yeah, like what if I had like a specific font color that I wanted every item to have on my page? I would have to go through and find each time I've created that font color and change it there. Okay. Gets messy really fast. Totally. Like, yeah, it's pretty cluttered, right? And I don't think that's a super negative because we're going to see styled components later, which looks very similar to this. Yeah, I mean, you know, it could be messy. What are some advantages to using styled components? What are some advantages to using inline styles like this? Specificity, totally. Quick, yeah. I can mock this up super fast, right? Make it easy to change style based on the logic of your component. Edward, that's what I would say is like the top, the number one reason to do this. And essentially to do it with like props, right? Because of props. So if I click on something and I change some data, I can change style based on the data coming in from the props. So if I go, oh man, I'm going to include a prop down here, and I just want to say color. All right, someone give me another color, CSS color. Slate gray. All right. I already got Dodger blue right here. Don't worry, I'll always include it. So slate gray, okay? So if I came in here and I said props, I can do this, right? And there it is, okay? So whatever this prop is, I can change this prop and I can affect this component based on what our props are. So you'll see why this was the hands down most popular way to create CSS in React. And still is. You'll probably get on the job and you'll probably see there's a lot of this going on still. And it's nothing wrong with that, okay? It's just you got to know when and where to use it. One disadvantage I want to talk about of using this as well is that this is not true CSS. And as such, we can't write it like that. So if I said something like, if I did display, and then you have to make sure that you put everything in a string because it's an object, not CSS. So if I said this, this is not valid, right? Because JavaScript doesn't allow us to use hyphens. So we need to go through and change it to use camel case, okay? It's a small inconvenience, but it is a pain in the butt for sure, especially when you're used to writing CSS and especially when you're used to writing less. It can just be really annoying to have to, you're going to run into that problem a lot. I run into it all the time. So many things in CSS are hyphenated, and we cannot hyphenate anything. So we have to make sure that we come in and camel case everything. Cool. So essentially, those are like the basic ways of incorporating CSS into our React application. Write a regular CSS file and import it. Boom, there we go. We can import it directly into our each place we need to use it. We can import all the CSS files we need into our index if we want, and if you're able to use it throughout your application just by using class name or ID, using regular CSS. Use less. We can use less. I don't think I would ever create a project that used plain old regular CSS ever again after using a preprocessor. You know, I always use less or Sass if I'm going to write CSS. So you can do that. Bring it in that way. We can give it an inline style. So this is a React inline style, which actually this evaluates down to an actual inline style. And so this is probably the most common way you'll see it. Up until recently, this is how we did it. And so you're going to see a lot of legacy React application. Legacy meaning a few years. Import less files into React? No. So think about it, Arpita. How do we import a regular less file? How do we import regular less files into HTML? We do it the same exact way. We use our compiler to compile down to one CSS file and import it that way. We can also come into our index.html or index.html, come into our head, and import it in here, right? I can say link, and as long as I put it in the public folder, I can import it right into our HTML right here. Okay, it's another way of importing it. So, like I said, up until recently, and up until recently is what we're going to learn about tonight. So let's take a break, 5 minutes. We'll come back. We'll talk about Bootstrap, and then we'll talk about styled components. All right. Timer. Close that, and let's get that going. All right, see you in 5. All right, everyone, come on back, and we will continue on. So, before we get started, I'm going to throw a little poll into Slack. One second. All right, how many of you have heard of or have used Bootstrap in the past? Please answer now. Ah, yes. I don't expect any of you to have used it with React. I'm just talking in general. Can you hear me now? Oh, man. Okay. I've been talking for like the last couple minutes without anyone hearing me. All right. So let's go back and talk about it. So, yeah, like most of you, it looks like, have heard of Bootstrap in the past. At least heard of it. The majority of you have used it, whether you've used it in simple projects or like Andrew's horrible portfolio site, etc. Or any type of other thing you've used, you've kind of heard of it, at least. We're not going to delve super into the intricacies of Bootstrap tonight, because it's pretty simple to pick up once you know how it works, and once you are able to read the documentation. You can go and get any of these components out of it. So looking at the regular getbootstrap.com site here, we see that Bootstrap is what we call a UI library. They call themselves a popular front-end library. They actually call themselves the world's most popular front-end component library. I'd have to agree with them, right? Bootstrap is, once you see how Bootstrap looks, if you've never used it before or never really like given it much attention, once you kind of understand how the looks of Bootstrap, you're going to see it used in, I would say, at least 50% of all websites you go on. And so it's just like this massive thing. Bootstrap was originally built by Twitter. So if you're like, oh, Twitter must use Bootstrap because all of their stuff looks exactly like Bootstrap, that's for a reason, because they actually wrote it. And now it's kind of gone on to its own open source life that's kind of diverged from the whole Twitter sphere. It used to be called Twitter Bootstrap. Now it's just Bootstrap. So what it is it's a UI library. It's a component library. It's a bunch of CSS that's been written for us. That looks great, okay? And so we can focus on writing the logic of our application, and we can use Bootstrap, and it's going to look good, all right? Like I said, it does look like a lot of like everyone else's stuff because everyone else uses it. So that's some downsides to Bootstrap. Is it is configurable. You can make it your own. It takes a lot of work, and for the most part, if you're going to use Bootstrap, you don't really want to put that much work into it. You can download some themes, things like that, but Bootstrap comes pretty good out of the box. Personally, I use Bootstrap to prototype or to get something out quick. When I want to make a proof of concept, when I want to just build a little project, to play around with the new technology, I use Bootstrap because it looks good and I don't have to think about it. Okay, I don't have to worry about designing something or something like that. So not using Bootstraps while your Instagram clone looks horrible? Maybe, I don't know. We're not all amazing designers. I am not. So I use Bootstrap to prototype stuff. Bootstrap is used all over the place in production code and in production apps. Not saying that that's its only use is prototyping. It's everywhere, okay? But I think it kind of looks pretty generic. Like it looks like a lot of things. So we can go through Bootstrap. We can go through the documentation. And this is how we use it with a regular, normal HTML page, okay? So if we want to use Bootstrap with React, we use something called ReactStrap, all right? And ReactStrap is a library that wraps all of the Bootstrap components in React components, all right? And so we can install ReactStrap, and we can use all of Bootstrap in our React app just like we would any other component. If we want to use regular Bootstrap with React, that's totally fine. We just import it like we would any other CSS, and we can use the you'll see Bootstrap is all about using classes. So we give it a class. We give it a div, and we give it a class of alert and alert primary, and it's going to look like that. All right. So let's actually go in and do something like that. Let's go in and say we're going to go to dependencies. We're going to add a dependency, and we're going to add Bootstrap. In your project, you will be yarn adding these, right? You're not going to add a dependency. You're going to yarn add Bootstrap, okay? And it's going to give it to you. We are then going to, very important, import it, all right? We talked about importing CSS files. We can just import Bootstrap, all right? And then we can come in here and say, I want to kind of minimize that a little bit. We can come in and go div class name and we're going to get a Bootstrap component in here. Look at that. All I did was import Bootstrap, and this is in Training Kit, so you do not have to memorize bootstrap/dist/css/bootstrap.min.css. That's all in Training Kit for you. So we can just do this, right? We can come in here and say like, all right, well, Bootstrap, let's say we want to create a button. Let's go button, and we want to say button, type button, and class. Let's just do this. Let's come in here. We're going to change this to button. And we're going to give it our classes. Boom, look at that. Now we have this awesome Bootstrap button. It's really, really simple to use. Let's see. There are other UI libraries out there. Material UI is probably the second most popular React library, and it's a different style than Bootstrap. But this is how we use Bootstrap without React-Strap. React-Strap actually makes things much more React-like, where we're not going to throw a bunch of different class names onto the. This is essentially just writing HTML. All right. So let's go look at React-Strap. React-Strap is actually going to wrap all of our Bootstrap components into React component, just like this. Now we're going to be able to import uppercase button, and this is because this is a capitalized letter. We know that this is a component, right? And so we can use it as a React component, just like this. So let's come in here. And we're going to add a dependency, and we're going to add React Strap. Okay, Bootstrap for components for React. We still need to import Bootstrap into our file. All right, if we are going to use React Strap, we still need to import it. But we can now do something like this. Import button, oh my gosh. And now we can get rid of this. We'll keep this for a moment. And there we go. So now we have an actual React component that we're using instead of just throwing a bunch of different class names onto JSX elements. So coming into React Strap, we can see, we'll go into our documentation. Let's go getting started, etc. See, it even tells you here, you need to import Bootstrap into your project no matter what, and then throughout the project you can just use the React Strap components. So the components, look at this, all of these components we can use. This makes it so easy to create like these like rich UIs without having to worry about designing them and writing the CSS and doing it all ourselves. So let's go, oh, that's a tough one. I want to go something a little bit easier. Card. Let's go to card. Come in here, and oftentimes I'll just copy paste this. Boom, boom. We're going to need card, card image, card body, card titles, card subtitle. There's a lot of them here. All right, so we're going to go card, card, body, card, image, subtitle. And this makes it so that we do not have to import There we go. Now we have a Bootstrap card in here. So it's really simple. And this was just a pretty, I think this card doesn't look great right here, but with 100%, that's what we don't want. Well, let's do 50% on that. Should have. Yeah. But going through the documentation in React we can see that all we have to do is go to badge. We can come into our documentation, grab the element we want, and then we can come in and it'll tell us it'll give us all of our props that we're going to use. So essentially, I'm going to get rid of this for right now. When I add color as primary, color is a prop, right? So I've brought in this new component button. We don't have to create it. It's been created for us. And this is the first time that you all have ever seen pre-created components for us to use, okay? So we see we have a button. It's going to wrap some text. We give it a color prop, and we give it the color of primary because that is how Bootstrap works. It has predefined colors into it. So we can say, change that color to secondary. Now we have a secondary color. And I think that alert, no. Let's see what all of our colors are. Let's go to button. Primary, secondary, success, info, warning, danger. So we'll come in here and we'll change it to danger. And then think of what you can do too with this, right? We can adjust this color based on what our props are. So if I say color danger, what if I said props.danger come in here and say danger equals true. And it'll change based on our props there. So there's a lot of really cool things we can do with this. And like I said, once you get the hang of the documentation, all we need to do is say like, oh, I want a spinner. So let me go spinner info. So spinner is going to be the name of the component. So we're going to need to import the component, the spinner, and we give it a prop of a color. So these are all the properties, thankfully. I found them on spinner. We can give a type, a size, a color, a class name, so we can actually give it our own CSS if we wanted to. And we don't have to worry about these other ones because those are more advanced. But type, size, and color. So what if we said type grow, sizes, look, all of these things are really awesome. So let's go in here. Get rid of all those. Spinner. Where are we at? Why is it not? Let's see. That color. Oh, why doesn't it say? Oh, we can give it our own style as well in here. MD. Let's just do LG. See if that's right. If you cannot find the color or the size in the React docs, just go to Bootstrap because it's the same exact elements that they're using. So largest LG, yeah, probably. You're right. We can come in here, spinners, and then we can see, let's go to, where is our size? Here we go. So it's not even giving it to us in here. That's really funny. Let's try LG, unless I missed it somewhere. M5 for margin, that's more advanced as well. Oh well, let's come in here and say size LG. Why is our color, what's going on? This shouldn't have any effect on it. Did I spell it wrong? I don't know what I did wrong on this, but still. Huh, that's really strange. I don't know why it's not working. Very, very odd. Spinner from React Strap. Don't know. But I'll figure it out, and then I'll get back with you why it's not working. That's really strange. Import spinner, yeah, I imported spinner. So import spinner from React Strap. From where? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's weird. It just seems to be on the spinner only. I don't understand why that's not working. Odd. Okay. Yeah, and look, Bootstrap even gives us these hover overs. They give us these long clicks, do a lot of stuff for us. So that is Bootstrap, and that's React Strap. We're essentially going to tabs. You're going to come in here. You're going to see that we have imported quite a few items up here and used them. And you're going to find badge. Badge is a good one. That all we're going to do is import the component and then give it some props. And I would suggest having the Bootstrap page loaded up as well for a little bit more info about what we're using and how it's using them. But this is just Bootstrap, and we're going to give it to them in our props here. Any questions about Bootstrap right now? Pretty simple to use Bootstrap. It's really just navigating the Bootstrap way. It's very opinionated. They've obviously written this the way they want to write it. They've given the names of the colors, etc., what they want. And so it's really just kind of figuring out like, oh, I want this thing to be green. What color is that? Oh, that's info or success or something like that. It's not just green, right? So that's Bootstrap and React Strap. So in order to use both, remember that we need to import both Bootstrap and React Strap into here. We need to import Bootstrap and then whatever component we want from React Strap. If you use something like Material UI, it is very, very, very similar. So Material UI is a UI framework, the world's most popular React framework, right? Bootstrap's the world's most popular front-end component framework, and apparently Material UI is the world's most popular React component framework. So you're going to get some, where's our docs? Components. You're just going to get the kind of the Google Material style stuff from it. There's tons of them. They're all virtually the same in the way you use them. You will import a component and you'll pass it some props based on the color and size, etc. Alando. For the most part, yes. These do work in React Native. But React Native has some different styling rules, and so you're probably going to have to find a Material UI React Native library. So yes and no. There's a little bit of different styling in React Native. All right. Let's do another 5-minute break right now. Come back and we'll talk about styled components, which excite me quite a bit. So let's do 5 more. I know we're kind of, it's only a 30-minute there, but I want to spend as uninterrupted time with styled components. Cool. See you in 5. All right, everybody, come on back. Let's finish this off by talking about styled components. So, styled components is one library in this kind of bigger idea of what's known as CSS in JavaScript. That's not the right one. Where are we at? Styled components. CSS in JavaScript, CSS in JS is what it's known as, and it's kind of been all the rage recently, where we can actually write CSS, actual CSS. You see, border radius. We can write actual CSS inside of our JavaScript. And so there are a number of different libraries, and Style Component seems to be the one that's really taking off. It's a lot of fun to work with. You can actually write real CSS. You can nest selectors and other selectors. You can write preprocessor style CSS. There's some really cool stuff with it. And so I really have been enjoying working with styled components recently, and I think that you will as well. So first things first, what we need to do, and let's get rid of this. Let's come into here and get rid of some React Strap stuff. And let's go. Let's cancel those out. Let's go styled components. All right, so we are importing styled components into our project. And let's come in here and we're going to say import styled from styled components. So let's go look at our documentation for styled components. We're going to see, I don't understand visual primitives for the component age. That's very tagline-y, funny thing to me. So we're going to use ES6 syntax and real CSS to create components within our app. And it gives us a great example of it here. There is one big hurdle we need to overcome when we talk about styled components, and that is this syntax here. So how we create a styled component is we just create what feels like a regular component. So let's say const, we had a button before, we're just going to call it button, and we have it uppercase, right? That denotes that this is a component. Next we say styled equals styled dot, and then we give it whatever HTML element we want this to be. This can be an anchor tag. This can be a button. This can be a div. This can be a header if we want, right? We give it the name of the element we want this to be. So let's just go off that first item on styled components here, and then we'll just give it the an anchor element. Okay. All right. So this is all fine and dandy. And what we see here is we have styled from styled components. We have a method on styled. And so we're going to expect to do something like this. All right. This is not the way to do it. Styled components uses the syntax that is available to us as of ES6. It's not used a lot, but it allows us to call a function with a backticks of a string. Okay, so you can delve into the why and the how it works later on, but for right now, it's just kind of, let's just accept it in that we're actually calling a function and we're passing in this string as an argument, and it's actually going to allow us to access some other arguments in here. So we give it backticks, right? These are not single quotes. This is just like string interpolation. These are backticks. And we can now just write our regular CSS in here. So let's go Let's just do width. Let's say 150 pixels. Go. Adding 10 pixels and 20 pixels. Let's reverse that. Let's go border of 1px solid. It's got a CSS color for me. Rosy brown. All right, I'm gonna trust that that's a real color. Cool. So we have this, and let's go color as well of rosy brown. So now what we have a component. We have a styled component here. And we can use this component just like we would any other component in React. So we can come in here and say, button, click me. And look at that. We now have this component. Oh man, I hate that top. I want that. Let's go. Let's change that back. Cool. And we can use this as many times as we want now. Oh, that was the wrong button. Ooh, there's some funky stuff going on with our styles there, but cool. Great question, Andrew. So that would go into its own file and then import it where we need it? Yeah. If you were to create something like this, like a button, and you wanted to use it throughout your entire site, you could you would put it in its own file, and then you would be able to import it wherever you wanted throughout your entire project. And you're like, well, this is cool. Like, I get it. Like, we can write these components that are styled now, and that's fine. But it's not really giving us like this huge benefit, right? We're not really getting much more than just writing this, right? What's the difference between this and this? A little bit of syntax, and that's about it, right? That's all we're really getting. Well, where style components really shines is with the use of props. So we can use props within our style components. Here real quick. So what we would do is something like this. We don't have to say props anywhere in here. It already gives us this props for us. And so we, instead of border, let's go, I'm gonna go border none on this. I'm gonna keep rosy brown. So let's do something like, we have to do the $ and the brackets. Remember, this backtick is our string templating, so it is our string interpolation. So we still, if we want to include JavaScript in here, we have to give it the $ in our brackets. And now we can just say props. It gives us this idea of props. So let's say props dot, what are we going to call this? Let's say screen. We'll go props. And actually, sorry, what we need to do in here is pass it a callback. And then we need to return it. And we can just, let's do this. Props.green, otherwise Rosie, is it Rosie Brown? Was that it? Let's go look. Thank you. Green is not a color. Green is. Rosie Brown. There it is. Oops. Let's go background color. Background, green. Otherwise, background Rosie Brown. Okay. So now we see that we are defaulting to Rosie Brown because our props.green is not set. And if we come in here and say green, then that's going to change that to true for us. Have we talked about being able to just write the name of a prop and that defaults to true yet? Great time to talk about it. So this is one way of writing a prop that defaults to true. Okay. React doesn't like us to do this. It doesn't matter. You can do this if you want. But if you just write the name of the prop, what that is that is just saying green equals true. Okay, it just defaults to true. All right, so these are both the same exact thing on here. Now, if we wanted to do false, we still have to write false out. Okay, we can't do something like this. Right, that doesn't work. So if we just write the name of the prop, that defaults to green equals true. Okay, so we can come in here too, and let me just, I'm going to copy paste some stuff straight from Training Kit. So if you want to see this, you can look at a Training Kit for it. And let's walk through what this is doing exactly for us. So this is four different callbacks, right? So the first thing it's doing is saying this is a callback, this is a function. Remember, we don't have to wrap parentheses around if we have a single argument. We all know what an arrow function looks like. And this is essentially, since it's in line right here, this is implicitly returning this whole statement. So we don't have to write return and we don't have to write curly brackets. I'm showing you this because this is in Training Kit, and also this is kind of, you're going to see a lot of these newer style ways of writing functions on the internet when you go looking for tutorials and things. So this is essentially the same as doing this. Same thing, okay? This and this are the same exact thing. Since it's in line, if you have multiple lines, you cannot do this. You have to have the curly brackets. But since it's on a single line, we can write with no curly brackets and an implied return statement. So it's going to return this whole statement. So what this is saying is if props.type is primary, then change the background to that. If it's success, if it's danger, if it's warning. So now we can come in here and say type warning. And now we get that, okay? And we can come in here and say type danger. We can even come, I mean, these are just something we've written, all right? Let's come in here and just say type is Dan, and our background is going to be the always wonderful Dodger Blue. So now let's come in here and just go type Dan. And there we go. Okay. So what this allows us to do is this allows us to create these buttons or these components, pass them our own props, and allow us to determine the style based on the props we passed it, right? So this could be controlled by the data coming in from React, from our parent component. If we have state that's passed as a prop from our parent, we can read that prop and say like, oh, is this button disabled? And if it is, then we can just say disabled. You know, we can change it dynamically, whereas something like CSS, if we import a CSS file into it, we cannot change that dynamically, right? And so this allows us to be able to use this and change it dynamically. Any questions on this right now? Because I want to make sure that we're not totally lost in this and what's going on here. The syntax is weird. I will admit that. The first time I saw it, I was like, what the heck is going on with that? And I went in and did a lot of digging and really found out why they used it like this. But this is, if you get used to the syntax and just these strings, it's pretty simple to use style components. So questions right now. And we're going to go a little further into this as well. Arpita, you're using parentheses there, and you need to be using curly brackets. The props here, this is a function, right? So this is just a function that style components is actually passing this into that function for us. All we're doing is styling an anchor tag here. Yep, that's all we're doing. Correct, Paul. For some reason, it's breaking like that. That's super weird. Why is it breaking like that? Probably because it's an anchor. Sure. Let's go look, actually. Let's go to our documentation. Basics, pass props. Let's try it out. That's my favorite type of experimentation. Ref. That's on that one. And yep, we can just put an href prop on our button if we want. Totally. And we can also do something like text decoration none, and that'll take that underline away. And then we didn't set a color, so we can just say color white. And there we go. Google it is. So yes, we can extend them that way. Any other questions right now? I see several people typing, so give you all a minute. Oh, Jason, we have covered quite a bit, so you will need to rewatch. But essentially, if you go to the style components documentation, you should be able to figure it out pretty easily. There's a lot of complex parts of style components that we're not going to get into, but That is a great question, Philip. Yes, you can. And you can also nest. So style components is pretty powerful. Advanced. Let's go. We're looking for theming, security, media. We can do media queries. Yes. Okay, my favorite part about style components. I'll get to it in a moment too. I was not going to mention it, but so yes, we can use pseudo selectors. I don't see where they are on here. I think that would be the advanced. Let's go. Attributes. We can use attributes. Or is there no pseudo? Pseudo. Let's just Google it. Styled components, pseudo selectors. You can, I can't find it at the exact moment, but I'll dig through the documentation and find it for you. Let's see. Bootstrap is quicker and easier to use and set up, but confines you to their look. Yes. Style components is adaptable. It allows us to write our own CSS in JavaScript. So if you are using, if you're coming from something that's already styled, what I do is I just grab the styles and I put it into a style component directly from the CSS. So you could do that. React Strap is actually going to be the focus of our project tonight, but that's pretty simple to get going and to learn about. I think this is much more interesting right now. Would you just make a JavaScript file with multiple components to import? Yeah, you could do that. You could have a styled components folder, and you would put all of your JavaScript files in there with your components in it, is what I would do. Cool. So let's talk about a couple of different things. Let's just do this. So you're like, we have this button. We are also able to extend the styles of this button onto another component. So if I went something like const, let's go border button. Okay, so I want to create another component that has all of these properties, but also has a border. We don't have a border on that button right now. So if I say styled, I can spell. And this time I'm actually going to call styled. I'm going to pass it in button. All right. Hang out with me. And now let's just do, I give it those backticks again. And now I can say border for pixel solid. I'll just go black. So looking at this right now, what does this look like to you? Voila, a higher order component. Yeah, so styled components is a higher order component. Bootstrap is a higher, React Strap are higher order components. These are all higher order components that we are passing data to. They're extending the functionality of our data and giving us back another component, right? So in this case, I can now come in and say, border button, border button. Oh yeah, because I didn't do both. And now look, it still has that same functionality. We still have danger in there. I can change that to Dan if I want. but yet it's extending the functionality of this button to give it a border, okay? So you can do this with any of the styles you want. This is really cool part of styled components is extending the styles of a component we have. So yeah, if we have this, say we have this base button component that lives at the top level directory and we're using it all over our app. If we want to change some very minute things just about the button when we use it somewhere, we can do that if we want to change the width or the height or any of that stuff, but still maintain all of the properties of that button unchanged. We can absolutely do that. Okay, so it's really powerful. It allows us to create these componentized. You can extend border button to make dotted border button. Absolutely. You can change anything you want. You can continue going down the line and changing it. One thing I wanted to talk about before we finish tonight is my favorite part about style components. That is media queries. Before CSS and JavaScript, we could not write media queries in React. We could write it in a CSS file, we could write it in a less file, but we couldn't write it directly in React. So we couldn't utilize our props and our state to change things about it if we wanted to. And that was a pretty big detrimental thing with styling components in React. When you extend, can you override? Yep. So if I say color, there we go. You absolutely can override whatever has happened up here. So it's essentially, I don't want to confuse the two, but no, we're not going to go there. I was going to say it's essentially like classes, but it's not. It's a little bit different. But yeah, so whatever we put in this CSS takes precedence over we put in its parent, okay, or what we've inherited from. So if we do something, we can actually put media queries directly into style components. So let's go max width. Where are we at here? Oh, it doesn't tell us on here. Let's just go 600 px. I don't want color. Let's go. Let's just do something. No, we'll go width. Width. Okay. I don't know how it works on there. Oh, I do that. Oh yeah, I did not do my style component. I did not do this. Wait, yeah, this should work. Media max width, 600 px. Did I move it down? No, I did not move it down. It's still not working. Strange right now. You can use Flexbox. You can use any CSS that you would normally use in that. You can also nest selectors like you would in less. You can nest selectors in here. So say we had a paragraph tag in here. You could do that in here, okay? Let's go font size, 10 pixels. So these style components are like anything you can do in CSS, you can do in style components. Oh, that messed things up. Let's go span instead of paragraph because it does not like that. And that's our CSS, not our. Cool, right? So we can nest in there as well. You don't have to and it. Nope. Just like in less, how we nest. Okay, and I don't know why our media query is not working. Media, let's go look. No, I don't want media templates. That's too much. Yeah, you can look through the documentation. You can see there that we can throw animations in there as well using keyframes. Anything you do in normal CSS. So our media query is not working. I'm not sure why. I'll have to debug it myself, but I'll do that with the spinner as well. Oh yeah, and works for pseudo. Yep, absolutely. So if you do and last child, and we go width 300 pixels. Yeah. Anyways, maybe not the. Anyways, but I'm just throwing all kinds of stuff in here. The main things I wanted to talk about were just being able to pass in props and being able to affect our style based on that props, being able to create these dynamically styled components and extending those styles. Okay, those are the two big things we wanted to talk about with styled components. But your assignment tonight is essentially going to be based on React Strap. React Strap, like we use it. It's fairly simple to get going. You just have to make sure that you import the right things and go from there and use the correct props. So yeah, any questions on any of this right now tonight? What we've done. And I can share this with you as well. All styling. Into React Strap, and I believe styled components is a stretch goal. Any other questions? As you can see tonight, there are a lot of options for styling React components. And these are probably going to change, right, in the future. But just understanding the different options, how we can use them, and where we can go. I honestly, you can mix and match. Most of the time when you get to a new job, they're already going to have the way that they style things. They're like, oh, we do nothing but Sass here. You're like, okay, that's what we're doing. But it's really good to know the different options out there. And styled components is going to be a very, very big one. It is already a big one. You can see on their site all of the companies that are using it. We've got, DoorDash and Target and Atlassian, and all of these different sites are all using styled components now. It's a big one. So just understanding the different options that we have and how to utilize those options is what this is all about right now. Cool. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Sprint this Saturday. Any tips? Go over lifecycle methods. Lifecycle methods are going to be very big for Saturday sprint challenge. But welcome back. First week back. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Good luck with your sprint challenge this Saturday. It's not as crazy as you're hyping it up to be. No higher order components in it. You've got it. But worry about this project right now, and worry about that on Saturday. But other than that, have a good night, everybody, and I'll see you later.